It's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes of December 12th. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. All those in favor?
Oh, aye. Sorry to hold you. But if the town manager hadn't interrupted, we'd already be done with it.
Sorry, just going in order. I'll just sit here. You let me know when you need me.
Yeah. Are we reapplying for the grant, or is this
No,
just
we're closing.
finalized?
Closing,
Right. This is
So I don't really, I'm not
finalizing
exactly
business.
sure what the purpose of the public hearing is, other than to have.
To give the public an option to voice.
Well, I think probably to hear about how it went. I mean, because it's
Yeah.
already done.
That's what that crowd was outside the
Yes.
door.
Yes.
Okay.
So we invited them in now.
Yeah.
So I guess a brief summary of how it went, and
Okay.
if nobody shows up, or
Okay. So are we opening public hearing now?
Do we need to move that or anything?
yeah, I think we formally need to open up the hearing at such and such time.
I'll make a motion that we open the public hearing at 5:35.
I'll second that.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to open the public hearing for the general store. Is there any discussion? No, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor? Aye. Aye.
Okay, would you like to give you a summary of the project? This is a Vermont Community Development block grant that the town applied for. The Putney Selectboard Society in 2008. It was extended because of the loss of the building by fire. So we had an extension till 2013, June 2013. But we're able to, the project is 100% complete, and we're able to close out early. And the store's been operating for a year, as was our goal. And the remaining punch list items are very, very minor, just paperwork. And all told, we received from the CDP $317,382. Other resources that we spent on the construction was about $620,000, and then another $120,000 on soft costs. So that's, I think that's it.
And we have been paid, that money has all been paid by VCDP?
It's all been paid, it's gone through the town, and
So we don't have anything outstanding from that?
no.
Okay.
It was an in and out.
Yes.
Yeah, because
The town did provide various, like $3,000 or $4,000 of in-kind
In-kind.
services.
Administrative.
Chris Ryan's time,
Yeah. Good. Looks great.
Yes, we're very grateful.
It's really,
The town is very grateful that you applied on our behalf. We think it was worth it.
Yeah. How's he feeling about business?
He's feeling pretty good. I mean, I think
Things
that
seem
he
to
has
be-
at least as much traffic as the old store, and it's, slowly.
Seems to be building all the time,
I think so.
which is nice.
The truth is, I think it takes people a while. And, we were trying to make sure we had our general store again, but really it's a new store, so
Yeah.
people really have to get used to it and adjust to how they will
And it had been a long time. I mean, everybody had gotten used to
Yeah,
new patterns and
it's true.
different stopping.
I mean, it's really, what's really interesting, well, not interesting, but wonderful in a way, is that the schools and the students in this town, of which there are many, really, really use the store.
Yeah.
And it's really important to them, because they're pretty much captives in this town
Yeah.
in a certain way, especially boarding students. So
It's a central
it's a
location.
really important thing for them.
I think
For his business.
his sort of minor but significant changes downstairs and in structure and layout that made it a much more
Yeah.
sort of user-friendly space. So it's good.
Just waiting for him to bring back the Papazian on the board. The sandwich went away, I'm not sure.
Well, now that the hearing's
It's an issue,
closed,
you know,
maybe.
not the town of Thanksgiving.
Wait, sure, do you want us to hold up the hearing until it? Should that be a condition?
Is there anything else I need to do as far as closing the grant? I don't think so, right? You have the closeout paperwork that,
The only thing we need to do is upload the minutes of this public hearing.
Okay.
Close it and do the minutes of it and then upload that
okay.
along with, the notice, the tear sheet from the paper.
Well,
I corrected I have learned that the town PIP has in fact done the fair housing training. So as the chair of the planning board, that means, the town is eligible for other implementation grants and doesn't have to go through that. We thought that was going to hold everything up because nobody had managed to make it to one of these all-day trainings. But PIP in fact had, so that's great. And that's important, I'm telling you, because I didn't know, and Cynthia didn't know.
Yeah.
And, we were going through all these hoops about how
to try and get it done.
Right.
Yeah.
So, that's good.
Good. Well, I think it's pretty widely recognized that this wouldn't have happened without you, so we certainly appreciate all of
Without
your
this grant either,
work. Yeah, thank you.
and all of your support. Thank you. Drake can close the public hearing now.
Yeah, close it. Unless we want to let those people in, you said.
I don't know what to say. Okay.
Make a motion that we close the public hearing and close out the grant and therefore close the,
Do you
I don't know
just
whether
close the
that's.
public hearing? Because I
close the
think
public
since
hearing.
we've got,
That is the closing
That
of the
is,
grant.
yeah.
So I'll make a motion that we close the public hearing.
I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded to close public hearing. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Good.
I'll leave
Thank you again.
okay.
It's the final report.
We can get rid of all of the,
Have fun with the family.
Thank you. Have fun with it.
See ya.
Bye-bye.
Okay, now should we get back to things in order?
sure,
You're going to stay out of it?
let's stay out of it. We can go to the sewer rates, though. I think we're there, aren't we? There's a memo in there talking about an increase in the sewer rates in order to meet the financial obligations for the fiscal year 13 budget. The sewer rates need to be raised as follows. Followed the Putney flat rate. It was 86 a quarter. It is now going to be raised, well, if you approve it, $94 a quarter. The metered rate will be raised from 0.004 to 0.0042 per gallon.
So, metered rate for water inflow? Is that what because we don't have metered sewer
We
rate.
do have some metered.
We do? Okay.
Yeah, very, very few.
Okay.
Yeah. Dummerston flat rate will be $1.88 per quarter, and Dummerston metered rate will be 0.0084 0.04 instead of 0.008. And Dummerston's flat rate before was 172.
Which was also double what it was
Double.
previous? Yeah.
Yeah, it's double. Was that your question? It's double the,
Yeah. So it's increasing by an equal amount.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So these rates will be entered, we probably should have done this increase for the first quarter billing, July through September. That didn't get done, but taking that into account, these rates will cover us for the fiscal year if we start this new rate January, for that billing in January, which is the second quarter billing.
Is there any reason to make it retroactive?
No.
You don't feel that's necessary?
No, because the way the rates, I went through and looked at the meter rates, and the average that we are bringing in, there's a minimum in the metered rate. So if you don't use the full allotment,
You pay in the RA, you pay.
Right.
So the average for our metered rate, if we only billed the minimum, it would be about $11,000. Our average has been about $18,000 on that rate. So there's been a little bit of cushion in there anyways.
That's the total of all the metered rates? Is that what you're saying?
That's what we've been billing for a year.
Yeah.
So this, when I do the calculation on this rate for the rest of the year, it covers the budget for fiscal year 13.
And is this as a result of you having had the opportunity to, as we've talked about, you hope to really go through and see the reality? So this is just based on existing numbers in and numbers out.
Yes.
It's not based on a review of
Right. This is based on the budget that was voted at town meeting last year for fiscal year 13.
Okay.
I did do some calculations based on, one of my thought processes was, should we raise the rate now to also include, because if we do the Headworks project, we will have to borrow money. So do we raise the rate now to try to help? It's already been voted on, we know, and I did check, we are going to try to do that project if we have enough money after we get the chemical feed building done.
And that was voted on and approved up to X
Up to
amount for
100,000.
purchase, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's been voted on, we just haven't done it yet. And so there was this thought in my head, well, do we want to raise the rates now for this purpose and then raise them when we borrow? Or do we just want to do it now to cover ourselves and get it going? And I didn't go that route. It was just, let's cover what we are currently obligated for. And then if we have to raise the rates midterm when we borrow the money, we have the voted approval to do it. So
Does that approval expire is there an expiration time period on
Not
that?
that I know of. No,
Okay.
I've never.
You might want to just double check
I'll double check that, but I don't.
Because I don't know whether that's
Yeah.
sort of for 1 year.
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know the answer to that. Okay, I'll find that out. So these sewer rates are basically just to cover the increase for fiscal year 13 budget. And this increase will cover that, starting with the January billing.
All right. Well,
Do you want to know what the actual increase for people, so that you just have that?
well, I was just going to make the
$8
motion.
Okay.
per quarter, right?
Yeah, 8.
I think I'll just list the dollar amount.
Okay.
And, the minutes can reflect the current rate and the...
Okay.
Right. So I will make a motion that as well as acting as the sewer commissioners, that we raise the flat rate, the ERU flat rate in Putney and Ford and Dummerston both. The Putney rate will go to $94 per quarter. The Dummerston flat rate to $172 per quarter. The Putney metered rate for water.
No, it's 188 for Dummerston.
Okay. I'm going to count on Or
She just looked at me and went,
to accurately.
okay, all right.
It's not the metered rate for water, it's metered rate for sewer.
Oh, it is, that is
For sewage.
sewer, both, okay. For Putney, it will be raised to .0042 per gallon, and the Dummerston rate will go to 0.0084 per gallon.
I'll second the motion.
It's been moved and seconded to raise the sewer rates for the town of Putney. Is there any discussion?
So just to clarify, it was 86 per quarter before, you said, so it's an $8 per quarter
Yeah.
increase for Putney residents and a $16 per quarter, which represents just under a 10% increase. Yeah.
Are you adding that to the motion?
No, I just wanted to clarify that because
Interrupting.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Is there any more discussion? Seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. All those in favor of the new rates as previously stated, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Here, Brian, there's a
One problem.
copy of it. One thing down.
One.
So the highway budget is, it's in there somewhere. Brian and I worked on the budget. He went through and did some calls on, like chloride and we talked about the gravel at the new rate, which will be $7 as opposed to the $6 that it was, I think, right?
It was 6.25 maybe? Or was it 6?
I think it was 6.
It was 6, yeah.
So that is the gravel, at the new rate out of the gravel pit in Dummerston plus the crushing. Vehicle fuel, we increased that. Just based on history, not alone, let alone of course now the prices are starting to drop a little bit, but just, just on history, we raised that.
So was that just not a great number previously?
Yeah.
No, it was under by...
Several $1,000s.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we had a couple of real fuel spikes
Yeah.
within the fiscal year.
Yeah.
I suppose,
I'm going to skip over the salaries for right now because we can talk about that after. Let's see, where else did we? Some of the things we just level funded. I mean, as far as both Brian and I kind of being new to the budget for the highway, we're kind of feeling our way through it a little bit just because we're not sure on some of the things what the thought process was, and maybe you guys can fill in the blanks for us. There's contracted services under each department. We've kind of figured out what those are for, tree removal, that kind of thing, but there wasn't really any notes to say, $10,000 was planned for XYZ. And it may just be that we know we need some of these things done on an annual basis and we need that money there, and that's what the history's been of what we've used. So we just left things like that alone, just knowing that we need to feel our way through a year to see, we may need more, we may need less, I don't know.
I think that's more or less just contingency, really.
Yeah, I was going to
That's what
say,
I'm
right?
saying
Wouldn't
is,
you
yeah.
think it was just, the day the grader breaks through the bridge and falls into the brook? No, you've got to get the big.
Don't say that.
Oh, I've seen it happen.
Yeah.
But when
was long ago,
when
but-
everything goes and we have to get derricks in to do something,
Right, or
That's
the
what-
crane or whatever, or as you said, the tree service, something like that.
For the paving, we left it at 75,000. Under the town garage, there was an increase in small tools and equipment that was just a basic increase. We had some expenses this year that we kind of ran into with the chainsaw. There was some other stuff. So Brian and I had a conversation that there's probably some other things we're gonna run into that this year, this coming year. We have some small equipment that needs to be either replaced or repaired.
Does the number div/0 exclamation point actually mean anything?
It just means that Excel didn't like dividing that number into a 0. So if nothing was budgeted for fiscal year 13.
That's what comes
Yeah,
up.
I need to go through.
So it doesn't mean anything.
No, I need to go through and fix those to reflect.
Okay.
I added training. We haven't had a training budget. I figured I called Vermont Local Roads. Their trainings are like $30. And I just strictly did it was it 2 or 3? Did I tell you? 3 trainings
3.
for each guy if they choose to do it, plus some town fair money.
Do you think they're likely to do that?
It's kind of hit or miss.
Yeah.
I mean, there's some of them that are real good, and then there's some of them that are like.
Of course. Yeah, no, we have the same. Yeah,
And-
same thing.
And it all just depends on what comes up.
Yeah.
So,
Are they throughout the year too?
yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
It'd be a little hard if we had a snowstorm to
Yeah.
go to work.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Brian, we've talked about it. One of the things that I want to get him involved in is through Vermont Local Roads, is the management portion of it, the budgeting and that.
Absolutely, yeah.
So, one guy might not take, for right now,
Right.
we'll feel out who really wants
Right.
to do it. And
But if a good class comes along, you think there will be interest from
Yeah.
at least some of the guys? Yeah.
so that was added. Do you have anything else you want to add, Brian, to any of the other lines before we get into the salary discussion?
Are you fairly comfortable that 75,000 in the retreatment department is ballpark what you want?
I talked to Dave Thurber, and
He's Springfield Paving.
yeah, and he's typically midway. Last year, I think Pike was a little bit cheaper, but
Yeah.
we went with Dave anyways because he's pretty flexible and he'll work with us on, if we want to cut a little here and put some there, he'll work with us.
Yeah.
And he seemed to think 75,000 would get that section of Westminster Road that's absolutely awful.
The next stretch, basically.
Yeah, well, it wouldn't be from where they left off this year. It would be like from,
Leaders
I
House,
think it's
Coop
like
Hill.
from the corner by
Yeah.
Leaders
Yeah.
to the town line.
Yeah.
But that wouldn't be shimmed and overlaid. That was pretty much just, they call it a heavy shim, which is basically pretty much an inch all the way up through there.
Yeah.
But that would guarantee that it would seal the whole thing off, because there's
Getting worse
sometimes
and
there's
worse.
cracks in it that
Yeah.
wide that
Yeah.
you just really need to get it sealed up so the base doesn't get any worse.
Yeah.
So that would kind of guarantee that, and that's basically what.
Is that pretty much it for the 75?
Yeah.
It's depressing, isn't it, man?
It's like to
We'll have to put that.
shim and overlay. Well, shim and then an inch and a half overlay. A mile is about 117 to 125,000.
Yeah.
So.
Is that what we did with these this summer?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was shimmed and then, well, no, not all of it. River Road and Westminster Road was, and then Hickory Ridge was basically that inch heavy shim.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that was kind of an almost similar situation, and just kind of needs to be
Yeah.
sealed up, so. Yeah.
And we're not in for state funds this year?
I don't know that.
I don't.
I think we're,
Because we,
right, this is our off year.
I was
But, you know,
told to apply every year.
oh, is that right?
Yeah.
As far as history goes with it, we probably won't
You
get
won't get it,
Yeah.
but,
because we got it. We used it last year.
right,
Yeah.
right.
So as far as history goes, we
I mean, what
probably won't.
I was told was that a lot of times that happens, that towns aren't applying every year, and then there's money sitting there, and they want to so apply.
And if you don't get it, you don't get it.
Right.
Yeah.
So the plan is, I just don't know what is out there, so I've got to, that we'll look for it. If we find some, then we'll talk about it. But
Good.
Is there any other roads that are in dire shape? I mean,
That's by far the worst.
yeah. What's the next?
Well, the section that would be, if we did that section, the section between the two, from what we did this past summer to that is not great, but I mean, it's manageable. I think besides that, things are
In reasonable shape.
decent. I mean,
Yeah.
West Hills,
Could always use some.
yeah.
Yeah,
But
Basically any high traffic road,
yeah.
higher traffic roads just don't take it. Like, some of the small.
Well, and that stretch that you're talking about doing, that's just the freeze-thaw cycles up through there
Yeah.
are just brutal,
Yeah.
had a little bit of traffic after Irene.
Yeah,
Lots of drafting.
that definitely didn't help it any.
That's true, yeah.
And I think there was talks with, I don't know whether it was John Alexander from the state
I was just wondering, there probably isn't anything available.
about that, and he said, I think he said through FEMA there would have been, but there was really no documentation to prove
Right.
the shape it was in before, and to prove that there was damage done to it by all the truck traffic.
Yeah.
So that was kind of the,
Yeah,
if we had some documentation of that it definitely got a lot worse, then we probably would have some money for it. But
yeah, there are towns that have gotten quite a bit of money for that.
yeah,
But we'll know better.
kind of water under the bridge now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's too bad, but.
So are you also, you don't have anything else to add on that? Do you guys have any other questions about that, other than we need to talk, the salary line items have the 2% cost of living built into it right now. I want to say if there was no cost of living, it would be like a savings of 4,000 something, give or take a few hundred. But I did put the 2% in there. One thing that I want, it was brought to my attention that we have an employee that has worked longer in the department than some of the newer, the person we hired in July and the person that we just hired. But because of the way the beginning pay was given to those people, they're now equal with this person that's been working for the town for a while. So in the numbers that I put in here, it includes another 1% on his hourly rate to get him,
Seniority bumped
Yeah.
up a little bit.
yeah, and then
Basically because COLA wasn't, because we
I
didn't keep
think
up
what
with that for a
happened
couple of
was,
years.
well, we haven't hired someone new for a long time in that
Yeah.
department, and when we did, we used the lowest paid
Old.
scale
Yeah.
instead of having a starting rate of maybe less than,
Right.
so I need to be careful if that happens again, that we don't start them at a hourly rate that then when they get bumped up in 6 months after their probation period is over, that they're not bumped up to the same thing that people that have been, and that's what happened.
Yeah.
So,
Is 1% reasonable for that?
well, it goes from 1462 to 1491. It's like an extra $400 a year. It's not a lot, but I mean, we can do a different
I don't know.
I mean, I want to at least show that we recognize the
Recognize it.
seniority.
Yeah, no, I think that's,
We're making the effort.
Yeah. Whether it's a,
fair or not.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I guess it would depend on, I don't know whether we can sort of look at the history of that at all, or whether not really, just to see what seniority. I mean, how much does that typically bump people up, you know?
Yeah, I mean,
well, because we don't really, that's not the,
yeah.
Right.
yeah, it's
Can really
hard,
do
it's a
that.
hard one. I mean, we
Yeah.
could do it up to, to make a $15, which would be another, I don't know. I mean, I think that, to me, it seemed fair, just, it was at least showing.
It's a recognition
Yeah.
anyway, yeah.
I mean, there hasn't been any grumblings about it.
No.
It's
Right.
not like something that he's complaining about or anything like that. It's just something that was kind of noticed, and it's like, it's really not fair.
No, it's not fair.
So it does include that. Overall, the highway department wages are down, is it 9%?
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's just due to the shift in
Hierarchy.
personnel.
Yeah.
But I know that since I've been here, and even a little bit before I was here, there was discussion about the part-time position. So I've been talking to Brian about it. Him and I have been kind of batting it around, and my main concern was let's look at the department as a whole, and what do we want that position to accomplish? Let's put a question mark as to who is in the position. We need to know what that position is for.
Right.
Because that's been a question in my mind, obviously, because I don't know, I don't work up there. So him and I had a conversation about it today, and I'll just let him kind of go ahead. I mean, I don't want to get into too many nitty-gritty details of personnel, just
Right.
position.
I mean, I guess as far as that position goes, obviously he hasn't been with us for a year, so it kind of looks like, things are working without him, but that's kind of a on the surface thing. I looked it up today, and last summer we put in 6 culverts, which typically we put in somewhere around 20. And I mean, there's a lot of culverts in this town that there's no bottom in at all.
Right.
We did some paving this year, and unfortunately we paved right over a couple culverts that are in that position, and they should have been replaced before it got paved. It just came down to...
Well, I'm wondering that, I mean, we should certainly be looking at that on that next stretch that's going to get paved too.
I mean, that's huge, getting stuff done underneath before you finish it. It only makes sense. I mean, you don't build a house from the roof down. So,
now you're getting all technical.
Right. Or shall we say, not cost effectively. Let's put it that way.
Main Street was paved.
Of course.
I've done a few of
But we
those.
still didn't replace the culverts underneath.
No.
So,
yeah.
but that's the state, so you can't expect that.
And if you try and do a culvert on a Westminster Road or West Hill or anything
Takes a
besides a
batch of
little
guys.
side road,
Yeah.
you really need 5 people. You need somebody to run the equipment. You need 2 people to flag on each end, and you need 2 people to
On the ground, yeah.
be in the hole. And at any point in time during the summer is typically when people take their vacations, or somebody calls in sick, and it's just try and take that guy away. It's only 3 days a week, but at least those 3 days you can really get a good chunk of stuff done, and then move on to some other stuff the other 2 days.
Well, then the tough question is going to be, is that old codger who's been doing the job the right guy for it?
Well, I mean...
I don't know. I guess the first question is whether he's going to...
Yeah, I mean,
whether he's really going to come back or not.
That's the what's going to decide
Right.
it. Right
Well,
there.
and this was the discussion we had today. I said to him, let's take people out of it. What do we need for a person? What are the jobs we need to get done? And that was when he was talking about the culverts. And I said, okay, if we don't have the person that we've had,
Which, for the record,
Bill
the old
Harlow.
codger I'm talking
Yeah.
about is his father, Bill Harlow.
so if we don't have him there, then what does that person, what are the qualifications of that person? What does it look like?
Right.
You know, and it's basically we need somebody that can run equipment.
Yeah.
And can we find somebody with the knowledge of the roads in this town with that type of skill? Probably not right now, but that doesn't mean somebody couldn't build into it. But then the other discussion was, well, then maybe we need to have this money in the budget to hire
Contracted services.
Yeah. So if you can't find somebody, if Bill can't do it,
I mean, the problem with that is that, as we well know, since you need 5 guys, you sub that stuff out and it costs you a fortune, you know?
yeah.
Bang for your buck.
You're better off
that
paying.
$25,000 in that position is.
You'll get a lot more out of
pretty
it.
cheap,
Yeah.
You know, for,
yeah, absolutely.
Right.
for what you get out of it.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, to hire an excavation company to come in and put in culverts, $25,000 isn't going to get you very far.
Not far at all.
It's going to get
No.
you maybe
Cup.
4 culverts
Yeah.
that each
Yeah.
inch, you know,
Yeah.
maybe.
I mean,
And what's your sense of which of your current newer guys are going to be your more qualified equipment operators?
Well, I mean, it's up in the air right now. I mean, really, this time of year is not really the great time of year to. We're gonna find out come the summer.
Yeah.
You know, really.
Yeah.
But you know, I mean, experience-wise, I mean, Skip's probably got the most experience.
Yeah.
But it's hard to say, you know. I mean, one of them other guys could get in and get used to it like that and be real good at it,
But that's not their situation yet.
yeah, no, definitely not. I mean, it takes, you know, I mean, it just takes time.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And as far as like trying to learn 2 pieces of equipment, I mean, that's tough to try and learn how to run the grader and try to learn how to
And
run the
the hoe,
backhoe. It's hard.
Yeah.
And to have somebody there that you can just at any point in time say, go run this one or go run that one and just have it done and not have to worry about it,
There's value.
that's worth a lot.
Yeah.
But I mean, if he physically can't come back, then we'll have to go with, you know, a different route.
Right.
But
Figure it out.
I think that as far as that position goes, I mean, in reality, probably that part-time position being switched for another full-time guy would be
Ideal.
ideal.
That was
Yeah.
going to be my next question.
Yeah.
But
I mean, would it
That's
be,
certainly been a
is
discussion.
it something we need to start thinking about? Do we need another full-time?
yeah, I mean, I think if he comes back because of the experience level and the stuff that he can do,
Maybe
he
not.
can get more done in 3 days than somebody else can get done in a week. So if he comes back, no. But if he's not going to, then I think, yeah, you know, another full-time guy would be.
Now, he went to see his surgeon just the other day, didn't he?
Yeah.
Did he find anything out or not really?
But I think they want him to go get another MRI.
Yeah, I think that's what he said today.
Look at it again.
I mean, he said he's definitely better, but
Right. But the last thing he wants to do is get in equipment and start and make it worse again. So, no, I just didn't know whether that had sort of clarified anything for him at all or not. But
I mean, I think as far as I know, he could probably run equipment right now, but it's certain things that you got to keep him away from because. You know, if you're trying to clean a ditch with a grader and you hit it, I'm 27 and I hit it and it hurts my
and
back.
it jogs your back.
So,
Yeah. No, and the other, you know, the other.
unfortunately, it's out of our hands.
Yeah.
We have no
Yes.
control over what he thinks he could do or what.
Yeah.
We send a job description and they say,
Yeah.
you can do X, Y, Z.
Right.
So we have no control over
Saying, yes, this is
saying
appropriate or
yes.
not.
Yeah, we don't. We don't.
I mean, but you know, you look at running the hoe and just getting up and down off that thing till you're back. I mean, you know, I guess, you know, probably as much as anything, we have to go on his opinion of whether he thinks he's going to be able to do the work that they say that he should be able to. And I don't know what the time frame on that'll be,
yeah,
but
yeah.
wait for another MRI and then see.
In the interim, I mean, we can leave the money there, leave the position there. If it comes down to it, there will at least be some money there to get some of that work done that we are not getting done now because
Right.
we don't have that part-time person.
Yeah.
And if that means, okay, we want to do 20 culverts, but we can only afford 10, by hiring it out, at least we're getting some of the work done and there's money
Yeah.
there to get it done.
Yeah,
So,
at least we're getting 10 and not 6. Yeah.
so
I think, you know, like through the winter time, it's really not
that important.
huge deal having him gone because, you know, we have other people that can come in and run.
Now, what about plowing? Because you're out for plowing, is that right? You're not? You're going to be doing it?
Well, we'll see. I know I'm a new boss, so we'll see.
If I can keep him from going to Florida, I mean, he can come plow snow all day long. If he wants.
Right.
It's those Mickey Mouse ears that get him.
So you're feeling all right about plowing?
Well, I found out yesterday, no surgery, so.
Oh, is that right? Good. Just
is that good or is that bad?
That's good.
Oh,
I'm
good.
not going to the knife.
Good.
Yeah, so that's, I mean, you know, probably until typically you don't really start putting in culverts right in the spring because the ground's so wet. So usually
Right.
late May, early June. You know,
yeah.
that's a good date or something to go by, I guess.
So this current salary number includes that halftime salary?
Yes.
And how does that work as far as what we pay in unemployment for the currently
Workers' comp.
or workers' comp? Not, yeah. I mean, that doesn't fit. That's not in that salary line item, or is it?
That's insurance. isn't it?
No, Laura,
A portion of, a portion of this is paid through workers' comp, and then...
we pick up the rest.
Well, we pick up the rest through that salary line. It's like 4 hours a week. He
So
uses
there
sick time
is a
for
small
4 hours
portion
a
of it
week.
in here.
Yes, that will
Okay.
get spent.
Okay. So this,
But remember, this is next year, and I'm assuming, I haven't talked to the insurance company, but I'm assuming that by the next fiscal year, that's not going to be,
if he's not able to work, they're not going to keep paying.
right.
Right.
So this budget probably, I mean, this is all a big unknown, but I would assume by then there's not going to be a payout of workers' comp. I mean,
And then we don't have a fiscal responsibility. Well, I mean, once the workers' comp
other than any
expires.
sick time that's accrued, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and that would come out of that salary line. And I don't know-
Sick time would,
Yeah, and I don't
yeah.
know how much is even there or what's accruing
Yeah.
or.
Okay.
And so overall, it's still even with that in there and the small increases we did in some other areas, it's still overall, the budget's down 2%, so.
Sounds good.
Sounds good.
Do we need to vote on this or
I
not?
mean, I don't think so, because it's part of the whole budget, so when we
Right.
approve the whole budget, these numbers will be in there.
That's what I thought. I just wanted to. But that's not true with sewer and water, right?
Right, we're gonna.
Yeah,
I've
we
got
need to
those for
vote those
today,
separately.
yeah.
Yeah.
What was my question going to be?
We're going to talk about the capital plan.
Oh, yeah, see, I told you, if I didn't say anything, remind me. I did present a capital plan earlier in this.
Do we have a copy of it? or
Yeah,
no?
it should be in there.
Oh, yeah.
I'll kill a lot of trees, don't I? It's in here.
I'm just, I'll get it.
So, one of the things that Brian asked me about when he looked at the capital plan was a discussion about the sidewalk. Well, let me just back up. I don't think you were at the meeting where we talked about the capital plan. I think
No.
you were gone.
Yeah.
And the two things that were in the original plan that was in the town report last year were pick up the Ford number 5
Yeah.
to be replaced. The sidewalk tractor was not, that was pushed over and starting in the fiscal year 15 was over there.
Yeah.
And then there was this painting of the town hall was also down there. So and what I talked with the board the last time was if we're going to purchase a truck for $45,000, which was really the only thing other than the painting that we were talking
The
about
pickup
next
truck.
year.
Yeah.
Instead of budgeting to move money from the general fund and put it in the capital, and then bring back another $15,000 to the general fund, and then borrow money, we have this perpetual put money in the capital fund, turn around and move a little bit back to the general fund to cover whatever the first payment is basically on a new piece of equipment. So that was one style that I was using to maybe pay for that piece of equipment and not borrow money and not move any money into the capital fund this year and just kind of purchase a big piece of equipment in 1 year and have no borrowing. But then when Brian reminded me that we talked about the sidewalk tractor maybe being a discussion for this budget year, I shifted my thinking a little bit.
You're not thrilled with the idea of getting another year out of that thing?
Well, I mean, it could last another year.
Keep cobbing it.
The biggest problem with that thing is that when something breaks on it, it could take you a month to get parts for it because parts are just not available for it.
That's because of its age, or
It's because of
and what it is.
Yeah, it's basically because of what it is. I mean, and I can just see that with this new sidewalk and that thing being broke down for 2 weeks, and it's.
That's right. 2 weeks of bad
Whereas,
weather,
like,
you get behind.
Another
Freezes.
Yeah.
another brand. Well, for instance, that's a Holder, which is, I believe it's a German company, and so that's why most of the parts have to come out of Germany, and it's like pulling teeth to try to get parts. Which, like a trackless, it's like got Dana axles in it. You could go down to Bond and buy most of the parts for it.
yeah.
It's got a Cummins engine in it. You can get the parts for it.
And is having a rig like that the way to go? Or for the amount of, I'm wondering, like, what about the possibility of a, 27 horse Kubota with a blower on it? Does that make sense or not?
It depends. For, a little light 3-inch fluffy storm, it might be good, but because we don't have a person to be in the thing nonstop, by the time the storm's all over with and all the slush
You gotta
gets
be
pushed
able
on the
to really
sidewalk,
hug it.
that stuff's like
Yeah.
trying to move cement.
Yeah.
So, the idea would be good if you had somebody
could
that
do
could
it.
just sit in the thing
Yeah.
and buzz back and forth throughout the whole storm, but,
Yeah.
you can either...
Has any thought ever been given to possibly contracting it out? I know it's a pain to get somebody in that
Yeah.
machine and get it taken care of the way it should be.
Yeah.
I looked that up. We tried at one point because I looked in the folder about all that sidewalk tractor, and there was I don't know if it was put in the paper, if there was a letter sent out, but nobody responded to it.
Well, I
don't know
can't
if it
imagine, I
was
mean,
a-
how would you do that? Would it be somebody?
It gets pricey.
I mean, unless you, yeah, because
You know,
unless
just
you
my
were,
experience at the high school, just the plowing bill that you would see after they had done all the work at the high school was astronomical. You know,
plus unless
a
you
lot of it,
in
a lot
town-
of it was that kind of careful
Why I'm
cleaning.
thinking of this
Careful
is that
cleaning up.
next section, we're already talking about it.
Yeah,
I know.
We're gonna be blowing that in a truck.
yeah.
Is that machine gonna blow into a truck?
Yeah, that, a new machine will, I've actually been down and looked at Brattleboro's, and they have it's probably an hour process, but you put a higher chute on it and blow it in a truck.
Because I know that doing that is gonna add time and which you don't
And a
normally
second,
have.
and a second person.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, you're adding a whole bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
I mean,
But we're gonna, I mean, you know, in all reality, that's what we should be doing on this stretch, because it's almost impossible to keep it clean down through here, you know? But,
I mean, you can get away with it for a while. If like
Right.
you didn't want to put it over into people's yards, you could just blow it on the curb,
Right.
and then wait for 3 or 4 storms, and then pull it away from the curb with a grader, pick it up with a loader.
right,
But it's all
Time.
You know, it's time.
yeah.
And I mean,
well, that's kind of why I even brought up contracted services, because I know we're looking at
Yeah.
some,
I
there
mean,
could
I
be
don't-
some substantial costs.
I don't think, you know, as far as the group of guys we got, they don't mind working overtime. So if that was going to be the situation, they'd be fine with it. But
Right.
it does cost money, you know.
Yeah.
It's pretty hard to, you know, when you can just turn it this way and blow in somebody's yard. That's the easy route to go.
Right, but we,
I mean,
you know, I
we'll
think
hear about that,
we've
right?
had
We don't
some
need that.
yeah,
discussions about,
Yeah.
you know, blowing stuff into people's yards and that.
Yes.
which is understandable.
Well, especially since it's on 5, it's all salty and that, I mean, it's, you know,
Yeah.
kills any yard.
Yeah.
But, what kind of price, is this a realistic price range for what Brattleboro's rig is? This has 80. We have 80 on here.
Oh, why is there 100,000? Oh,
think-
that was the 20 that we dropped. Yeah. It's 100.
So it would go out to 2017,
Yep.
17, 18.
That was, I mean,
That's probably the ballpark that we're looking at.
for
I mean,
a new one.
as Brad says, you know, if we're going to have that, I mean, if we're not going to look at, you'd have to guess that contracting it out would cost 20 grand a year, I would think. So,
Oh, you might be surprised.
I wonder. I guess it would depend year to year, but, you know, we're looking at this plus the labor involved, but,
I mean, a brand new one, the amount of sidewalk we have would probably last for 30 years.
Right.
I mean, maybe not, but
at least 15 to 20, you
Yeah.
would assume. Yeah.
but and they do have. I actually just talked to Mike Perigo today, who's Howard P. Fairfield's, who they actually are a trackless dealer, and he said that they go through and refurbish a bunch of them, and they pretty much go right through them, all new hydraulic lines, and they said they're really nice, but somebody got rid of it for a reason. You know, you're still getting a used piece of equipment, so you don't,
Right.
you don't know. But
Well, we're not. This wasn't even really on
we
the
don't need
agenda
to-
tonight.
right,
You
we
don't need to
know
vote
it.
on this
Yeah.
tonight, but it's
Yeah.
just
Something we
it's a
should be
thought
thinking about.
process of
Yeah.
how are we going to, in the general fund budget, for saving for capital expenditures, and what do we want to spend it on next year? And we know the truck is definite. I mean, that's been,
Right.
so we just need to decide, do we want to keep with the plan that has been there and just push the sidewalk tractor out another year, maybe bring the painting back or not the painting, I don't know, but I just need some,
Is that 45,000 for that number 5 a reasonable number for what you need at this point?
that's over what we need.
It is? Okay.
I think I got a price, and I think it was just shy of 38,000. And that didn't count us. We'd have to, we'd have to put the strobes on it and a toolbox and some small stuff, but
That has a plow on it. And
yeah, that's with a plow
Yeah.
and
The tires going up.
what is that, a 250? What, 350? 350, yeah, okay.
I don't know, maybe the sidewalk tractor is something we should do in this next, it's fresh on everybody's mind, I don't know. We're just about to apply for another $375,000, so, and if we get that, we're in a position to not quickly turn around a sidewalk, but we're quite a ways into the process,
Yeah.
so.
the reason the sidewalk tractor came up was because was it doubled up with another piece of equipment? The
Yeah, there
sidewalk
was
tractor?
the Mac, the dump.
Yeah. So
Number
instead
two.
of spending $100,000 with probably $160,000 dump truck, I figured a $100,000 sidewalk machine and a $40,000 pickup would be a little bit more consistent instead of doing this.
Right.
That was really the thought behind it. Plus,
Well, I mean, it's come up regularly
yeah.
that sometime it was going to be an issue anyway.
Yeah.
And I think we do have a reasonable obligation at this point because we have such an improved sidewalk to maintain it better, and that rig just doesn't do very well.
How long does it take now, say, to do the roads? I was just
It's
curious.
fast. It's nice. I think Brett was at it the other day for maybe two hours.
Of course, that was almost no accumulation,
Right.
but just to move back and forth.
I mean, as long as it's not, feet of it piled up. For the most part, the time is pretty consistent on what it takes. But the biggest problem was this section down through here. You just couldn't
do it.
You couldn't go, and you had to go so slow because it was so narrow, and there's a car right there. And you
Right.
want to fall off into it.
Yeah.
That now you can just buzz right down through it. It's really nice, but
What's the width on that thing?
I think.
Was it 42
I think
or
it's
something?
42 inches, I believe.
So you have to make paths both ways, down and then...
Yeah, you get like a full pass down and then like a half a pass.
Right.
On this section, anyways. I mean, that section up there, for the most part, unless it hasn't been done for 2 or 3 storms, and then basically you're cleaning up the mess stuff that falls back down in. Most of this is one pass and covers it.
And what's the trackless? Is that the same one?
Yeah, well, you can get them. As far as the machine goes, yeah. I mean, the blower width is, you can get them wider or narrower.
I mean, this is not a 5-foot sidewalk up here, so what is maybe 42?
Yeah.
It probably, parts of it are probably only 3 feet.
Yeah,
but,
it's definitely narrower than this is.
yeah.
I mean, if you've got a 5-footer for down here, is there places you couldn't
No, you
go up
probably
there?
still have to go with the same width machine because
Because of up there, yeah. I guess the other thing that's going to come up on this discussion, this doesn't have anything to do with Brian, but are we where we need to be as far as capital investment is concerned on our fire trucks? Because that, I know we sort of eliminated some things from that list over the last couple of years, and I don't know whether that doesn't have to come into the discussion now.
No,
but
I mean,
just
I
don't,
think that,
I
I know that when Tom comes in to talk about his budget, he wants to talk to you guys about the whole equipment at the fire department and what his thoughts are on it, and
get a little trackless with a pump on the back.
That's where that Kubota might come in.
There you go.
What do you got, one for sale?
You good on that? Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. I think you're off, unless you want to stay. You're welcome to stay.
Social services is next, if you want to jump in on that. I think I would too.
Well, we're not going to talk about social services long because I'm not really sure what the process, I mean, I understand.
Thank you, guys.
See you, Brian.
See you, Brian, thanks.
I mean, really, I can't fill the numbers in until I know the general fund budget is the way that I understand it, because it's a percentage of, there's nothing new that's come in, right, Laura? No
No new requests?
new requests.
So, I mean, basically that means unless you think the general fund budget is going to change dramatically, then these are going to remain more or less
I think
the
they're going to
same.
remain more or less. I mean, I did do a quick, I have it, the way the budget is right now, it was about $39,000. I mean, it's not, so I'll have to fill in those numbers.
Do we anticipate anything new coming in? I mean, is there anything new that
Not
might?
social service, because the rest of the things we talked about, well,
Actually, there's the Women's Crisis Center.
and that's a petition.
That was a petition, and they were requesting funding. But we explained, that we have a policy, and that they would really be requesting to be added to one of the groups. So that is a new group.
Yeah.
And they're not a subsidiary of any
One of
of these?
Well, I think they would fit into probably Group C based on their services.
Right, but they're not
Affiliated with-
Affiliated with
part of Morningside or part of,
They didn't say that they were,
okay.
Yes.
so that will come up at town meeting.
Okay. Well, that would be, that would just be an addition. So there's not,
Right.
well, I guess, the discussion that's led to in the past is whether we then alter the whole,
Exactly.
whether we alter the whole percentage
Yeah.
And it
thing.
gets altered at town meeting anyhow, so.
Exactly.
I think we need to be fair across the board, and I think, we have been, but it always gets
Something
changed a
gets
little
added.
bit. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it just means, basically what that would mean is probably, as you say, they'd likely be a Group C. So the Group C would go from, 465 to 445 or something like that,
To spread the, yeah. So I didn't really do much of that because I don't see a substantial change.
Right, so in effect, be level funding that.
Or staying with the same formula,
Right.
roughly. But that formula,
Which is going to be in effect.
and
have
that
to tell
formula is variable anyway. It doesn't,
I have to tell you, when I read the whole social service policy, it's very clear at the top what the formula should be, and then there's been amendments, and then even what we're using right now, it's a little bit gray
You mean
for me.
it's been more of a guideline than a...
well, and I think that's what it's,
And I think
for us, that's how we take
Yes.
it.
I think it's intentional.
We were approached last year, wasn't it, by Tom Ehrenberg and to think about upping that social services number. And I don't, didn't we have that discussion?
Yeah, here, nobody brought it...
Touched on it a little bit.
I don't think it went to town meeting.
Town meeting,
It might have been after town meeting. So that may come up again, I don't know. But,
Right. I think any part of it comes up for discussion, it'll
yeah.
Okay.
cause a flurry of interest.
Yes, those usually do.
Yep.
Well, yeah,
they
actually,
More than a sidewalk doctor.
actually, Virginia Scholl pulled me aside the other day and said we need to have a discussion about how to, think about personal agendas in town meeting and whether we want to try and curb those at all. So she's hoping to come and talk to us at some point. So.
So the water and sewer, I guess we'll look at this water budget first. It's the same budget that I talked to you about at the meeting that we did talk about water and sewer, but we never really and I'm assuming that you vote on it here. We never really did that. We kind of talked about it, and then we'll try to make it more formative.
Is it on the back of this guy?
Yeah.
Okay. Water fund budget we're looking at, or are we looking?
Yeah,
Now,
water.
Do the new sewer rates are reflected in here that we just voted on tonight?
They will cover, well, let's do the water first. Because the water rates are fine. The rates that we have in the water right now are enough to cover the budget that we currently have, the FY13 budget and the number that we're proposing.
Okay.
The increase in the contracted services is just the 3% increase for Simon Operation. We have a contract with them, and then each year it goes by the cost of living. But its minimum is 3%. So if the cost of living is 2, they still get the 3%. Nothing else changed, and then the only thing I did change was add a maintenance line of $5,000, because what we've been doing is charging any routine maintenance or any maintenance that comes up to the capital reserve line is basically what we've been doing. We never really had a maintenance line, so I just kind of shifted the description, and then the $15,000 for depreciation is new to help start building that reserve. The bond payment.
And you think the 5,000 for maintenance is sufficient?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I went back and looked, and that's basically what we've been spending.
Ballpark.
Yeah. That's been the ballpark, so. I did add, and I'm not sure why Chris never did it, but in the revenue section, he didn't budget. We make a little bit of penalty and interest, and he didn't budget for that. So I just put a number in there. So that's a little bit different too.
And the bond payment interest, 53,043, line 6,490. Why does that show it as 100% increase? What?
That's the 1,500 for the penalties, and the 100% is because we never budgeted before.
Okay, so our bond payment
Is 79,000, and then the user fees is just the difference between the two to make it balance.
She's way up here.
Yeah, no, I'm down below.
Oh, sorry. I thought you were in the revenue
on the
section.
payment end of it. Bond
Oh,
payment
because Chris
interest.
never broke out the interest and the payment. He had it all as one line, just bond payment.
So our interest is twice what our payment
Yes.
is at this point,
At this
because we're
point,
so
yes.
early on.
Yep.
Oof, that's painful, isn't it? And so it shows it as 100%, just as you said, because it wasn't broken in.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
I see. Yeah, no, that makes sense. So minus 67, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and some of these minor things that I'm doing actually make it easier when I go to do the financial statements for the auditor, for me.
Yeah.
So,
No, that makes sense to have
Yeah.
those separated out, because they're two different things. I just didn't,
Yeah.
it just wasn't clear to me why that was the way it was.
and just so I'm clear, my understanding is that the water budget does not get voted on at town meeting because the town is not helping to subsidize the water system. But that's why the sewer budget is voted on at town meeting. Is that true?
That sounds right.
Okay. I wonder what would happen if it was voted down.
To fund the sewer.
Yeah, because there's not any cushion in there for anything. It's all just direct costs.
Turn the key, lock the door, and say best of luck. I don't know. It's,
So I did have in here, if this budget, if you guys are okay with that, if you want to vote on, I'm just trying to get some knocked off that, you have any other questions?
I'll make a motion that we approve the proposed, that's what you want?
Yeah.
The proposed FY 2013-14 budget for the water system.
Do you need a number?
I will second that.
Oh, in the amount of $134,961.
I will second that.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve the fiscal year 14 proposed budget of $134,961. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. All those in favor?
Aye. And just out of interest, Cynthia, this discrepancy in the FY12 between budget and actual is just because of the shifting of that depreciation expense, is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
What I've struggled with a little bit is the way that the reporting is done for the town report, and then the way the reporting is done for an audit. So I'm trying to get
A little closer.
so that no matter what someone looks like, everyth's included.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's probably a little different than what you've
A
seen.
little more transparent.
Well, it's also, right, takes some confusion out of it. People get a hold of the audit.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, this doesn't
How come
happen.
this doesn't?
This is not that.
I've been that person before.
Yeah.
And the three guys on the stand are
Oh,
going,
God.
Oh, she's standing up again.
Our town manager can address that.
yeah, right, exactly.
Okay, so sewer fund. Your question was the rates that we just approved.
Reflected in this.
Those rates, if we don't add anything else to this budget, will cover FY14.
So your user fee number reflects those rates?
Yes. The user fees that you just approved will raise about $146,000.
So why does that only show that as a 2% increase over this year's budget, when it's actually a 10% increase in rates?
Because that rate was to catch up with this one over here, the FY12 budget. We actually just approved rates to cover the FY13 budget.
Oh, of course, yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Phew, you almost had me there.
I thought I was doing pretty well.
The only thing that would cause the rates to change in FY14 or even sooner is if we had to borrow money to pay for the headworks.
Right.
Which that borrowing's already been approved. I will check on what you were saying.
A time frame. Yeah.
But we, at any point during a year, you guys could change the rates to cover that payment. Hope it doesn't happen soon. People are gonna think I'm crazy. All of a sudden the rates are going up and everything. So what else?
It's also something that has been come up for discussion regularly, you know.
Yeah.
so.
I don't think there, I did put $8,000 in maintenance for the same reason that I stated before. We really didn't have a maintenance line. You know, we've been just kind of plunking that number for any maintenance into a different area. The small drops in heat and telephone are just based on history and what the costs of those things are.
But you didn't put anything in a depreciation here, is that
No,
because it's totally depreciated?
No,
or-
it's not. It's because I just kept the same process of capital reserve fund for right now.
Okay.
I mean, I think I wanted to, but we would have to raise the rates again. And right now, I'm not sure we have a clear enough picture.
And it
of
doesn't
the
make
entire
sense to
system.
just take that 10,000 from there and put it down in depreciation?
Yeah, we can. Well, then at least
Doesn't
the
matter
two-
to me, it's just
well,
whether
I mean,
that
at
makes
least the
it
two budgets would
be the same.
Yeah, we'll do
Yeah.
that. So if you vote on this, let's just make that small amendment to what I presented. That makes sense. Then we'll at least start that process and the water and sewer budgets look the same.
Comparable.
Yeah.
So the capital reserve line would go to 0,
Yeah.
and that's okay? I mean, we have any,
Yeah, I mean, this concept
take-
of capital reserve in these funds, the auditor kind of giggles at us because it's really just because you're an enterprise fund, you're supposed to be building capital. So,
but
yeah.
we don't really, I mean, if we have a major problem, we go to a bond.
Right.
Or just do it out of maintenance.
Well, we don't really have a capital reserve fund
Right.
anyway, so.
Not
Right.
really. But what we are
I feel like
trying
I
to-
already asked this question, I may have when we had this discussion last time, but should we be depreciating and building capital reserve? I mean, it's
Budgeting for depreciation will just, by its nature, build a
become
reserve.
surplus and build,
Yes.
okay, so they don't have to be two separate things, okay.
Yes. Eventually, we will probably take this capital reserve line right out of there so that,
It doesn't sound like
doesn't.
something it's not.
Yeah.
Okay.
the same thing, which that percentage didn't, I need to clean these spreadsheets up a little bit to make the percentages right, but the same thing with the bond and the interest payment, I broke those out. Well, it looks like Chris did last year too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, we are down that far below the fiscal year 13 budget?
That's because the 60,000 for the capital, for the plant improvement for the chemical feed was put in as an expense in that year and also a revenue.
Okay.
So that's why there's such a big difference.
And we haven't spent that
No.
money, so that'll carry, if we don't spend that money, that'll
It'll
carry
just
as a
carry forward.
surplus. We should
The
spend
plan
that money.
is to do it in April. We
Right.
just got stuff from Tata and Howard today, so in February we'll be talking about what we're going to do.
Okay. sounds
So
good.
it will be done in, well, I say it will be done in FY13, but I think it will, yeah.
Or early before, well, we can still record it for 13.
Yeah. If not, if it goes into July, yes, it'll just be part of
It's
the
surplus and then,
anyways,
right.
yeah.
But we have 60 days beyond June 1st anyway.
Not in the
Not with
enterprise
that.
fund, they just don't even.
It doesn't make sense to do that.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll make a motion that we accept the FY13-14 sewer fund budget in the amount of $197,718.
And I'll second that.
All right, it's been moved and seconded to accept the fiscal year 2014 proposed budget of $197,718. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, to the vote, all those in favor?
Aye.
So then the sewer capital plan is basically the same plan that was approved last year, with the 75,000 being proposed in FY14 for the headworks. And this was the attempt, this is kind of the carry forward, see the cumulative balance at the bottom? That's where we were talking about the reserve, this kind of paperwork reserve that we have. So you can see if we spend the 75, we're actually...
48,000.
Yeah, 48,000, but that will be borrowing money to cover that. The first 60,000
So we
is
only,
going to be out of...
the approved was only 100,000, it wasn't 125
Right.
in the article last year?
Yeah.
It was, okay.
So I didn't do anything beyond fiscal year 14 for more capital because, like I noted before, we're going to do a whole entire system inventory of equipment and system so that we can get a more detailed capital plan. We want to break it down to further components because the components of the system are so expensive. So I just didn't feel like, I asked Joe, what is there beyond? And he just, they want to get a good handle on it as much as I do.
So have sort of line items for specific pump replacements versus just...
Right. How many pumps do we have, and
when do they?
When is it?
When did they go in service, and when should they be?
And we should be able to turn that around pretty. I didn't do it now because I just haven't had time, but we should be able to, for FY15, have that ready because they have that information. Simon's does. We just need to get together and work on it. So that's where I'm at with it. The capital plan really doesn't have anything new on it, other than what you guys have already approved in prior years. So I don't know if that's something that they've typically voted on too. Yeah, because we include it in the town report.
So I'll make a motion that we approve the proposed 13-14 sewer fund capital replacement plan. And I put a number in that or not?
No.
And I'm not sure how I would. Yeah. Resulting in a...
As presented.
As presented. There you go.
That's what you're looking for. I'll second that.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to accept the 2013-14 proposed sewer fund capital replacement plan as presented. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, proceed to vote. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 All right, so there's just a couple of things I want to mention because they came up basically today. I have an update on the fire station roof. I talked to our insurance company. He said that if there is wind damage, we can put in a claim. Each section or each incident, 5 shingles is a claim.
An incident. Okay.
And we have to meet our deductible.
Each time?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
it's
our annual deductible. What is our deductible?
I think it's $1,000.
Per claim?
Yeah.
Oh.
Basically, he said.
So you're right. Huh.
Yeah. Basically, he said if what you're explaining
we want
to
it to be catastrophic if it's going to happen.
Right. You want to do it once, not.
And in theory, not theory, but in reality, doesn't. Even if we could put in a claim on these and get all of them, that's not going to solve the problem. That's not the problem.
Right.
Each little.
Right.
There's a surprise. We're not going to get any insurance.
So he did say that if there has been water damage, then they will cover it.
Right.
So if we replace the roof and they find water damage, we would put in a claim. The insurance companies could fight it out at that point, depending on who's replacing the roof.
Right.
He did tell me that if the problem is that the work that was done poorly, that the person that did the installation, his liability insurance probably wouldn't cover poor workmanship anyways. Just doesn't. But that the general contractor's liability should cover workmanship for subs that they hire. This was his. I haven't talked to anybody else's insurance except
I'm not sure that the subcontractor even had insurance. That was my impression.
They did have a certificate, yeah, because they wouldn't have been hired.
Oh, of course. Yeah. No, that makes sense. Yeah.
Well, they're out of business anyways.
Right.
So I talked to Westfield, and they basically are throwing their hands up that the town manager signed off on it, the engineer signed off on it, and I said, well, they didn't look at every single lift shingles to see if they're nailed properly. I mean, there's this, and you're the general contractor that's overseeing this project. You should be overseeing your subs. She sent me some information about the shingles, and I said the shingles are not the issue. The shingles themselves are not the issue. It's the way they were put onto the building. So the person that was supposed to call me, he didn't call me. He had somebody else call me from Westfield. So I told her I would be back in touch with her. I talked to Richard today. They cannot represent us because of a conflict. but he will put me in touch with another attorney. I will ask that attorney what we're looking at for costs, because they're on retainer. Our town attorney's on retainer, and
Right.
we'll have to pay somebody.
Right. So
Before I have them do anything, I'll come back, but right now I just wanted to find out, what are we looking at? If we want to take legal action, what are we looking at? Do we have a case, and what are we looking at for costs for the legal fees?
And Westfield's basically saying, sue us.
Yeah, she said something she didn't say that, but she
Right,
said,
but they're saying, we're not going to deal with it
we're not going to
anymore.
deal with it,
Yeah.
then,
For all practical purposes.
Yeah.
Come and get us.
No, I mean, I think we have a obligation to the voters to try and recover, to the taxpayers, to try and recover.
something.
Somebody should cover this. I mean,
Yeah.
we're 6 years into a 30-year roof, and
Well, and that was the other thing I asked the insurance company was, we're 6 years into it, is there any,
statute of liability.
and he said on a roof that's supposed to last 30 years, not as far as he was concerned.
Yeah.
Now, he's not the insurer. He might want to check if he was the insurer, but I don't, I don't think we have a choice.
No, because, this discussion has gone on for a while, and we're all aware, and it's becoming more clear all the time, that at some point, a catastrophic event is going to occur if we don't deal with it, and we don't want that.
The somewhat good news is if it does, we have insurance, it will cover it.
Right.
But then, it's just a matter of how long is this going to last, and what damage is being done that we don't know.
Right.
That's the biggest thing. So that's where we're at with the fire station. I called the phone company to find out about, we need internet connection down at the town garage and at the wastewater treatment plant. Our contract with Fairpoint and the lines that we have is come due. They're raising the rates, basically $4 a line. So she had to come down and sit with me and go through all the. We can get a 3-year contract with them that includes local and long distance. It will actually, that would eliminate our Sovereignet bill because they're our long distance carrier right now. It would eliminate us paying Simons for the internet connection down at the treatment plant. It would give the town garage internet. And basically the price difference between what we would be paying for the exact service we have now with the increase per line and what we can get with the 2 internet connections, it's a difference in plans of $330 a year. So I just wanted to let you guys know, I don't need a vote or anything, I just wanted to let you know that that was going on, and I'm going to be changing our plans a little bit with the phone just so we can get some internet connections where we need them. If you guys have any questions about it or concerns, then right now we're paying a lot of different people for our phone and internet service. If we can get it all in one and pay the same amount of money, then I think it's a good idea. And then Mike Marucki came in today. Him and I met. He's been talking to the sheriff's department also, I guess, and they mentioned that they wanted to have a meeting, like a public informational meeting, and I think maybe they mentioned that. So he was going to try to organize that for us, because he wants to, kind of take some of it off of us and work with the sheriff's department. And so he was looking at maybe February 4th or the 11th to do the meeting. He wants to do it prior to, it's a Monday. Do you have any concerns about having this public meeting, or you think it's a good idea? Do we want to do it with Westminster? I mean, we want to do our own.
Do we have a sense of whether we're thinking we're just going to put this in the potential change we would, if we all think we want to try and raise our budget to have the sheriff, do we want to put that in as an article? Does it?
My personal feeling on it is that it should be a separate article.
That's my feeling.
It's a big enough discussion item.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
And so
we don't want
public-
we don't want it to
public
look like we're trying
Trying
to
to
slap.
stuff
Public
it in
hearing
there.
before that
Okay, good.
is certainly not
That's what I thought too.
Okay,
I just
good.
wanted to.
inappropriate.
Yeah, I think that that's the most transparent thing we can do and let people, and if we have the public meeting, like you said before it, we might get those questions answered there, and people might be able to.
Well, it gets it in the press and gets
Yeah.
people talking about it also.
Yeah.
That it just simply gets it. And thank Mike for stepping in to
Do we
take a little bit of that.
have any sense of Westminster's interest or not really?
I talked to Matt today, and he wasn't, I mean, they did talk about it at a meeting last night, but it was kind of the same discussion we had when I was there. I suggested to him that maybe he just put it as an article. It may not pass this year, but at least the board will at least have the discussion that they
discussion,
need.
yeah.
But they may not have to if the sheriff also does an informational meeting with Westminster. They might,
Yeah.
I mean, I basically spoke to him as not just Putney Town, but as a taxpayer in Westminster. So why don't we at least have the discussion? It might get voted down, but at least you guys know what the town is feeling about it. So
What happens then? Putney votes it in, Westminster votes it out.
I think we have to go on the premise that we're on our own right now.
Right.
That's the.
And probably base our, I would assume in that situation, we'd put it in as an article to fund up to X amount for salary for
Right.
sheriff contract.
We'll know,
And if it-
and we'll know an actual number by that Tuesday.
But we,
Up to in the article,
but we won't by the
by the printing of it,
of
yeah.
the town report, so.
Yeah, so that's where we're at with that contract, and I'll just have Mike pick a date that works and Keith, whatever date works for them, and then we'll go with that. Sound good? Mm-hmm. So the next meeting isn't until January 2nd. We're going to take a break next week.
Heartbreaking.
I know. So, if you guys want to come in.
We can just come and hang out.
Sure.
You won't be here, but.
Sure. I don't have anything else.
Any warrants?
I don't know. Did she do any warrants today?
Maybe just a payroll warrant.
Yeah.
Will you then have your meetings 2 weeks after the 2nd?
Or are we on?
Are we going to stay on a weekly
I
budget
think it's the
schedule?
weekly until we vote the budget.
Right.
Yeah.
It's generally
At least a
full
couple
month
more
of December and
weeks.
January.
Yeah.
A couple more months, through the month.
Who do we still have? Fire department,
I'll email them what our schedule is.
library.
There's more than just the payroll.
So if we put the sheriff's department in as a separate article, then, because you've already got it in the budget.
I do.
Right, so that would.
I need to take it out, yeah,
You have it in the budget as the total amount?
as the 10-month.
So we would probably keep our previous number maybe
The 20,
and put an article for an increase of,
yeah.
because we're,
Yeah, because we need something.
exactly,
I mean,
at a minimum, we're going to do a
minimum,
contracted, yeah.
I mean, that's the question they need to answer at this meeting is what is 20,000? Where does that get us? I did get I have been reading the different calls that Melissa goes on, and they're pretty interesting. That's for once. So.
That's right. We repave that Westminster West Road section. Everybody be picking up speed through there. We should.
That's true. When River Road
Carve in a
was
little
being-
Improvement of the Westminster West Speedway there.
Well, I have to say that the idea, whether Westminster would go for it or not, but the idea of the shared contract
It makes
is
a lot
pretty
of sense.
appealing
It makes-
because it distributes the available workforce more effectively, which
Yeah, it does. It makes a lot of sense. I mean, not only from a professional standpoint here for me, but just I know what it's like sometimes when you want to and I want somebody that knows the people that are living here. We need somebody that's keeping an eye on people.
Yeah,
Who need to keep an eye on.
Yeah, $20,000 a year just doesn't buy that much policing.
No.
Plain and simple.
No, it doesn't.
Especially when it's not a designated officer.
Right. And
Right, you could get anybody on any given day.
Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, now more than ever, we need somebody that knows. They recognize things that not all of us might recognize.
Absolutely, no. And I think that, I think there's a general recognition about that. It's just, it's a lot of money to swallow.
It is. Yeah, there's no doubt
It
about
would be
it.
nice to see a little revenue coming back.
Absolutely.
Right.
Exactly. I think that needs to be impressed on the powers that be. That we really need to
Make some payback, yeah. No, and that's also, I think, we all see that speeding is still a consistent problem, and Melissa can't put the time into it, so, I mean, you could have 4 different speed traps in this town and make them in.
Oh, absolutely.
And that wouldn't go, I mean, not that that's what we're in it for, obviously, but it would,
it's just like
but it would slow traffic down,
Yeah,
which is.
in Chester, you do not speed through the Stone Village.
Right.
That's right. Yep, that's right.
You know that.
Pretty much Chester in general is a.
Yeah, I mean, and and you could get to that level where if people know it does reduce the speed, and then the revenue goes down. It's a catch-22 all around, but.
Yeah, but then you move down to Route 5 for a while, and then there's a whole slew of them all over the place. So.
Yeah, so I hope that they will. I mean, I don't know. I don't know what their. Nate and I try to not talk town stuff
sort of
in
have
the
to
I
be.
mean, you can only take so much of that stuff. So, all right.
Okay, I guess we'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved. All right, second.
I guess we should.
Happy holidays to our viewers.
It's official.